There's a new street fighter on your windowsill. The weapon is peace. The word is chill.
Hello there, gang, and welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behaviour, the Earth's mightiest action figure video podcast. So take off your pants, crack a beer, and let's talk toys. Let's talk about the long-awaited Armadillo Wave, aka Spider-Man No Way Home Wave 1. Why am I saying Wave 1 when there is only one wave? Because we're all hoping we're going to get a second wave that will actually have the figures from the movie that we all really want. Because right now, I've got to say this wave is a little more filler than it is killer. I had to pause there for a second to make sure I got that the right way around. So yes, they didn't want to give away all the characters in the film, so we couldn't get the toy solicits early and see what was going to happen, so instead we just got a fairly mediocre wave. But we're going to talk about it. But before we do, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, then join the 6-1 clicks by clicking the like, share and subscribe buttons. And also, if you want to get yourself a badass Model Behaviour t-shirt, maybe a little Christmas present for yourself, and in doing so, kind of a Christmas present for me, then you can do by going over to teespring.com. The link is right down there below. Right, enough shilling, let's talk about the figures. And first up we have Shriek, one of the figures I was most looking forward to. I'm a 616 guy, so considering that this was a predominantly movie-themed wave, I was really holding on for the comic book figures to deliver, especially Shriek, who is one that I have wanted for the longest time to make the maximum carnage display. I was waiting for this. It's not good. It's a real shame. Let's see what we can talk about as far as positives are concerned, though. It's the new female body, and this is a good body. It's got the double jointed elbows. Look how high up her hand is bending here. That's great. That's really nice. What else have we got that's good? The paintwork, alright, is actually very nice and clean. All the lines are very clear, like it's a nice paint job, which it needs to be because that's all it is. Really, there's no additional sculpting on her costume at all. I know that's not a revelation. That's kind of standard practice for Marvel Legends. Just paint the buck. But it is a shame when there's just nothing else going on with this figure then. This is a cheap one. This is one they definitely didn't allocate much money to. Because, yeah, all of this, there's no texture or detail to her at all. It's just a smooth bug. We got the extra belt there, okay, so that's something, and she has a little bangle around her left wrist, which I didn't even know she had in the comics. Does she? It seems like it's just a funny little extra piece, but well, there you go. It's something at least, you know. Give credit where it's due. But the big problem I have is the head. And this is a bit of a disappointment, really. First of all, what's with this hairstyle? Why she's got like a proper mullet kind of Kentucky waterfall going on here. We've got, you know, business at the front and then party at the back, and this real kind of right angle on like the cut around fringe. I don't know, is this how kids wear their hair these days? I mean, you know, I'm not one to talk, but my hair is by nature, not by choice. Whereas this is just it looks bad. And then with her actual face, because it's all obviously just white, that's fine because that's what the character looks like. But really, it's more the expression. She just has this slightly derpy kind of vague grin on her face. And the character is called Shriek because she shrieks. This isn't a shriek. This is a vague smile about something. Like she remembered a joke she heard a couple of weeks ago and was like, huh. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's very disappointing. Also, the character, there's no power effects here at all, and that's a big miss. Because normally her eye, her pale eye is what I'm trying to say. Her pale eye is like radiating energy and crackle and stuff. You've done that with X-Man. You've done it with Cable. You could have done it with her, but you didn't want to spend the money. So we got the figure that we got. Then also normally she's firing out energy blasts. She'll like clap her hands together and got like a zigzag kind of power effect. Any kind of electrical type effect would have provided that look. Didn't want to do it. And then yeah, just the way that her hair kind of cuts off the head, it looks like she's wearing a mullet wig because her hairline goes so far up the side of her head. It just, the more I talk about it, the more disappointed I am. This figure should have been a guaranteed keeper for me, but ultimately, no, I'm not going to keep her because that's a new rule I've made for action figures. I'm not going to keep them just because it's a character I like. It actually has to be a good action figure, and honestly, this isn't a good action figure.
But now we've got Jonah Jameson, and he's saying, "Get me pictures of Spider-Man."
And there's good and bad stuff here, okay? So first of all, the J.K. Simmons face is really well done. I don't know if they use like scanning technology. I know Mattel with their WWE figures, that's what they do. They scan the likeness of the actor. If that's the case here, it would make sense because they have nailed it. Really good work getting the likeness. So we have the angry face, and also we've got the more subdued, plain J.K. Simmons face, which is like, it's nice to have the different display options, but at the same time, sometimes it feels like it's not really necessary. I mean, do we need a plain, neutral Jonah Jameson face? I mean, not really. It's nice to have it, I guess, but maybe if you allocate the budget across the entire wave, then maybe you could have not given him an extra head, but given Shriek some power effects. That would have made more interesting, because you can pose Shriek with her power effects. You can only pose Jameson with one head at a time, unless you're doing some weird avant-garde type thing. But also, I guess they wanted to do that because there's not many more accessories that could possibly come with him. Although I say that, he could always have the fedora that he wore in the film. You could have put a little fedora on there. That would have made a difference. Or the overcoats. There's different looks that he could have had, but he didn't. Now, the biggest problem I have with this figure is these damn formal shoes that they have been using for years and years. I remember the Chameleon has these shoes as well, and you can't stand the figure up. You can try, you can balance him for a couple of seconds, but there is no good way of standing these shoes. They're so limited in their articulation that it's just so difficult to actually get the character to just stand up straight. It's really frustrating. And then you've got the suit body, which is just it's a suit body. There's not really too much to say about it, so I won't wax lyrical on the subject, but ultimately, he's got a couple of extra hands, he's got his pointing finger and his fist to slam down on the desk while he's telling everyone that Spider-Man is a menace. But besides that, there's nothing to really write home about. But now we can pick things up a little bit with Miles Morales, Gamerverse Miles Morales. And this guy has been getting a lot of votes for Figure of the Year. And I can see why. You've done good. You know, Hasbro, you've done good. This is an excellent figure. The thing I like most about it is that this could easily double up as a 616 Miles Morales. All the details and everything here are exactly as they need to be for a classic comic book version. So that's excellent, because I don't really collect Gamerverse as a wave, but regular comic book? Yeah, absolutely. And the current Miles Morales we have is a little bit old now. So this is a wonderful upgrade. An upgrade it is. You can see he's got the cool electrical crackle type hands on here, which is just one option, because he's got all the different hands as well, with the fists and the thwips and the clawing kind of ones. Such a great addition to the figure. Not only that, but he's got the Miles Morales head as well, so you can have the unmasked look. This is what an action figure should be. And that's the problem with Marvel Legends so often, is that if you do have to stretch one budget out over a whole wave and you pour a whole lot into one figure, then you get other mediocre ones. This one shows, but they all cost the same amount of money. That's the problem. So Shriek, who looks cheap and disappointing, costs the same price as this guy, who's excellent. You know, that's where I get sort of a bit salty, you know? And that's why I'm not buying full waves anymore. Nope, I won't do it. But this one, I'm very happy to have. All of the sculpted detail on here. His costume has like a rougher kind of texture to it, like it's not just a plain painted buck, but he's actually got some feeling like he is wearing a suit, which is so good. all of the detail on here, the spider, the webs, it's all crafted and sculpted on. That's so good. That's what I'm saying. That's why this guy has got votes for Figure of the Year. So far, this is an easy highlight. The lovely red markings on the back of his boots. Like, this is how it's done, Hasbro. This is excellent. Well done. So now it's time to bring it down. Way down. With the black and gold Spider-Man suit. Talk about a wave filler. Now, no spoilers for the movie, okay? But this suit is nothing. It means nothing. There's no grand scheme. This is just the most pointless thing. I'm so annoyed that this... I mean, we've even got like a Hot Toys version of this, haven't we? It's so redundant, is what it is. It's a redundant figure. And it's just a repaint, I guess. Is this based off of the No Way Home advanced suit or integrated suit? I'm not entirely sure what the different names are. But it's pointless, is what I'm saying. You don't need this. Alright, you really don't need this figure at all. It's not like badly made, like the construction of an action figure, but you've got this body. You know, you've got a Spider-Man. We've got this Spider-Man. We don't need this. You know, it's just completely surplus to requirements. And then also the fact that he comes with holding hands. Now, please feel free to write in wherever you would like. At exactly what point in any movie at any time does Spider-Man have to, like, hold... Like, what is he holding? He doesn't come with anything to hold. Spider-Man, it's so simple. You get wall-crawling hands, you get thwip hands, and you get fists. Why does he have these open hands? What is he holding on to? I don't need any answers because it doesn't matter. It's just a waste. Like, did you put no thought into this? It just feels so tertiary, so extra that we just don't need it. This is the ultimate wave filler action figure. Nothing to differentiate it. It doesn't even match up with his look in the film. He's missing a couple of vital components that actually would make this even accurate. This is a complete waste of time. Ultimate wave filler. Alright, deep cleansing breath. Let's bring things back up a bit with a decent action figure, and that is Doctor Strange. We've got a whole load of Doctor Stranges now. So we got this guy. We've got the 616 Classic coming out. Then in the Multiverse of Madness wave, we've got another Multiverse of Madness Doctor Strange. We've got the Astral Doctor Strange. Then we've got the Deluxe Doctor. You've got Doctor Stranges coming out the wazoo. And this is another one. And I don't know how this compares to the previous Doctor Strange figures. But, I mean, this, besides like a few minor tweaks here and there, I imagine isn't that different from like an Endgame Doctor Strange or any others, because it's just, it's Doctor Strange. Just doing his thing. Maybe it's a nicer buck or a nicer sculpt, but, you know, blue robes, red coat, what am I trying to say? Red cape, Zinglebert Bengaldatch head. That's all you need for a Doctor Strange. So if you don't have a movie Doctor Strange, then this is great. If you already do, you probably don't need this. But what you do have here is a nice figure. I mean, the fact that you can take the cape off as well is a nice touch to have there. And also his little time stone amulet, which I guess doesn't have the time stone in anymore. I don't know what he keeps in there. Maybe like breath mints or something. But the fact that that's a separate piece, that's really nice as well. So there's good stuff to be had with this action figure. Sorry, you see me wrestling with this in real time while I'm filming to try and get the peg in the back there. There we go, that's better. But yeah, what I do really like are these spacey-wacy, timey-wimey type effects here that actually are attached to his hands. I thought you were going to plug the fingers in, but no, it's actually a completely separate hand piece. And I like that. And the fact that one is big, one is small, that makes it more interesting and more dynamic looking. So I really like this. I think the Benedict Cumberbatch head is a great sculpt. He doesn't have a very expressive face, but it just looks like he's concentrating on a spell. That's fine. That's all you need. And then the rest of the details, the sculpting on the belts and straps and buckles, that's all nice enough. There's not a huge amount of paint, like there's not much shading or anything. It's a plain blue, a plain brown, and a few highlights, but that's okay, that's fine. So on the whole, I gotta say, this figure, this is actually one of the nicer ones from the wave. Now, the next figure from the wave that I was most looking forward to was Marlon. And having him in hand, it's difficult to get that hype about him, to be honest. I can see that, like, they've gone basic, and basic is fine to an extent. I mean, Marlon should be slightly taller than your average guy, and he sort of is. That's okay. The faces, he's got two different faces. He's got this more sneering face, and then more of a relaxed, regular kind of head, and they're both fine. You know, they're all right, but there's just not much to get excited about with this guy. I feel what makes him look kind of cheap to me, in my eye, is the fact that his jacket, his waistcoat, his cravat, the little gem there, it all feels like there's no separation to them. It's all just one solid piece, all molded together, and it feels like he's wearing one of those tuxedo t-shirts that the class clown would wear to prom, you know? That's what it looks like. It looks like he's just pulled it all on in one go. And that's kind of cheap feeling. I know that it's all about budget. Of course, it would have been lovely to have done a separate waistcoat piece and a separate overcoat piece. And I know that's not necessarily practical, which is fine. But also, it doesn't mean that it looks any better. I don't think it looks good. It looks okay at a glance, but doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Speaking of not holding up to scrutiny, the silver on the waistcoat here, it looks very blotchy. It looks splotchy and blotchy, and I think that maybe just a flat grey, while not as eye-catching, might have actually been better. It feels like someone's actually got a silver marker pen and coloured this in with that, and it's just not quite sitting very nicely, so I'm not a huge fan of that. But so there are some other nice parts of this figure that I do like. The soft material on the tails for his coat, that looks kind of nice. I dig that. His actual, the hand sculpts with the little suckers on the ends, those look decent. And like the general kind of mold and sculpt of his face, it's fine. He's just not a very spectacular figure. Then he also has these kind of formal shoes which are not easy to balance him, so he has to have a fairly basic kind of stance, which makes sense because he's quite a stoic character. But on the whole, he's just not a very spectacular figure. He's fine, but there's nothing to really get overly excited about. I kind of like him, but not a huge amount. Now, the final basic figure from the wave, we have the integrated suit Spider-Man, and this I was surprised by. I don't have much experience with MCU figures, so I don't know if this is just very, very similar, if it feels very much the same old ground for a lot of people, but for me, I was like, wow, this is kind of new, and I'm really impressed by this. I don't like the gold and blue with Spider-Man, but it's accurate to the movie. That's the design they went for, so it's fair enough. And the gold here is nice and shiny. Like, it looks good. It looks like a separate metallic piece that has been sort of implanted on here, and that's really cool. Then all the different lines, everything, there's so much sculpting going on with this. It feels like they've taken time and effort and work to really make a nice figure. Everything with the different lines on the leg, the webbing on the feet. Now, the webbing, of course, there's no black in the webbing. So if you want to get yourself like an artistic pen and draw in the webs, you would need to be very intricate, but you could do. I'm trying to harken back to the film and think like, are there visible webs? And I can't think, but it always just feels a bit off when you have sculpted webs but no actual ink in them. Whether it's accurate or not, it just feels a little bit odd. But I will allow it. I'll forgive it. I'm a benevolent guy, because the rest of this figure is really, really nice. He does feel super bare bones though. When you see him in the box, it looks like one of the budget figures that you get in the supermarket that doesn't have all the bells and whistles that other ones normally come with. Because it's just him and a couple of hands, and that's it. The rest of the box looks very bare. But then when you actually get him out, you can put him in some really fun, spidery kind of poses, and it just works. As an action figure, he's really fun to play around with, and you can get him in some fun kind of Spider-Man swinging type poses, and I mean that's an abomination of a pose, but you see what I'm talking about. You can do a lot with him, and I like that. So if you need a basic MCU Spider-Man, then that's cool. I mean, he's had so many different costumes in the MCU that you're getting a whole mess of Tom Holland Spider-Man figures, and this is just another one. But I gotta say, it's quite a nice one. And finally, we have the big bad builder figure, the Armadillo. And I gotta say, this dude's big. He is a big, chunky hoss of an action figure, and I respect that. A lot of plastic has gone into this. You can maybe see why some other figures look a little bit sparse, because this big boy right here is very impressive, but he's not perfect. Let's talk about him. First of all, just standing on the shelf, very imposing, so that's really cool. He's going to take up shelf space, look impressive, but you really can't do much in the way of posing with him. That is a shame. With the big shoulder piece here, the armor over here, it means that you really can't lift his arms up very much without separating it from the body. You get a lot of air in there, and it doesn't look good. That's a bit of a shame, but the only way they could have got around that would have been to have actually sculpted the separate shoulder pads onto his shoulders and worked out how they would articulate. It would have taken a lot. It would have taken a lot, and I appreciate that maybe it's just not practical to do that. But then the solution we've got, it has its drawbacks as well, so you got to be aware of that. And then also with his legs, you can sort of pivot the feet back, but going forward, not so much, because you get this ridge of armor here will connect with this ridge of armor here, and you can't really angle his foot any further forwards. So it limits your articulation when you're trying to get him to kind of be in a dynamic sort of stepping pose, because his rear foot, you can't tilt forwards. So that really limits him in that regard. All you can really do is just have him standing pretty much just straight up. Like that's what you're going to have. Even with this hand I've got where he's clawing outwards, it's still creating the separation up at the top here. But you got to do something to make him look a bit more interesting, haven't you? The face looks nice enough. It doesn't feel like there's a huge amount of paintwork going on, but that's kind of okay. I mean, it's the Armadillo. This is his colors. That's absolutely fine. And the grimacing kind of face, it fits him perfectly. No problem with that. Got the plain white eyes. Different artists draw the Armadillo in different ways. I think I would have kind of liked to have had pupils and stuff, but the fact they went all white, that's not a knock at all. It's a stylistic choice, and it still works. He looks like kind of a badass. I like that. And then also on his actual chest here, I appreciate that we've got a lighter cream kind of color that then, fades out and goes darker when we get to his arms. Like, that's a nice kind of transition. So good work with the paint job there. Then the rest of all of his orange armor, doesn't seem to be any shading or wash or anything on here. This is all very, very plain. So there's not a lot going on there. It would have been nicer to have spruced that up a little bit, but at the same time, that's a nice to have, but not a need to have, so that's okay. And then at least, thank goodness, we got some good paint work on his big old claws here as well, and the big old toenails. I actually really dig that. I mean, he's an armadillo. They should have big, scaly nails and claws. So that's a great touch. Works really well. And then little things like you got some veins on the arms and some ridges and detail on the inside of the legs. So the sculpting on this is really good. I dig it. It's just a shame you can't put him in a very interesting pose. Like this pretty much is it. This is how you're going to be displaying your armadillo. But if you don't mind a more neutral pose like this, if you want to have him kind of looming over a team of bad guys or something, he's going to work really well in that regard. So as far as that's concerned, I'll happily say Armadillo, he's a pretty decent bath. Alright guys, so it's time to rate this wave. So in dead last place, the worst of the entire wave has to go to Black and Gold Spider-Man. A suit so inconsequential, they don't even have a proper name for it. It's just like, what should we call this black and gold suit? Black and gold? Yeah, there you go. There's some red in it. Should we call it black and gold and red suit? Nah, can't be bothered. So no, this is the most inconsequential wave filler figure ever. Rubbish, dead last. Then we have Scream. Scream, what am I saying? Shriek. Can't even get a name right. Why should I even bother? Because I was so looking forward to this character. I really wanted to have the Maximum Carnage set complete, and she would have done that if we get Carrion as well. But now, I'm not even that fussed about Carrion, because, like, Scream, that's going to be logged in my brain now. If I say Scream one more time, you get a free Starbucks. Shriek just is disappointing. She's not terrible, but I can't get over the Kentucky Waterfall hairdo that makes it look like she's got like a shaved undercut, like it's so high on her head. Then obviously because the hair is stiff, you can't really move the head very well without it kind of conflicting, but that's something that we always have with long-haired characters. But yeah, she just feels like a missed opportunity, kind of disappointing there. After her though, we have
Jonah Jameson.
and he's fine, but really the only thing that puts him higher than Shriek, almost did it again, is that he has two different heads. So that's something. But again, they just took a suit body and whacked a J.K. Simmons head on. Two J.K. Simmons heads. But like, that's it. There's nothing, it's not exciting. Especially when you think about the figures that could be in a No Way Home wave. This ain't much. I know a lot of people who collect MCU, you're probably really happy to have a Jameson figure. But again, they could have done more. They could have given him a fedora. They could have maybe given him a Daily Bugle coffee cup, or just something to make the figure more interesting. And these damn shoes can go into room 101 and never come out again. Alright, now we're moving on to some better figures. You know, I feel better about these. We got Marlon. And Marlon is an extremely okay figure. He's not bad, but there are flaws there. Again, the feet are a little bit difficult to balance and pose him with. This whole section on the body, a little bit disappointing. It's all together, feels kind of cheap, and the paintwork doesn't look good. And he's got two different heads, but they're both kind of you know. So on the whole, he's a fine figure, but nothing too exciting. Now we got the integrated suit Spider-Man. And this actually, I genuinely like. As an action figure, basic bare bones, but what we have here is pretty, it's bold, bright design, lots of sculpted detail. I dig that. Then we move on to Doctor Strange, and maybe he's no different from a whole bunch of other Doctor Strange figures. I don't have them here to compare, but from what I can see, I like this. I like the cape, I love the magic effects, the face sculpt looks good. On the whole, really nice figure. Now then, the big bad Armadillo. You gotta love a figure that's huge, big, heavy, and chunky, and that's what this guy is. So for that, he wins a lot of points. He gets almost null point when it comes to articulation, because besides bending the elbows, you can't do much. The feet are too limited, the back piece will come away too much, so that stops him from being a truly great Build-A-Figure. But still, he is a very nice piece. And finally, the best figure of the wave is Gamerverse Miles Morales. So many accessories, the unmasked head, the power effects, the different hands, the nice shiny metallic red paint, all the sculpting on the body. This is what I'm talking about. Excellent, excellent figure, and a great way to finish off the wave. And folks, that does it for the Spider-Man Armadillo wave, aka No Way Home Wave 1. Here's hoping we get more of these to come. But in the meantime, guys, thanks so much for watching. What do you want to see in the next Spider-Man No Way Home wave? I can imagine a few suggestions. But thanks very much for watching. If you want to pick up a t-shirt, then you can do at the link below. And if you do, then send me a picture, because it's always kind of mind-blowing to see people wearing the merch. That's really awesome. If you want to go one step beyond in supporting the channel, you can do by going over to patreon.com/displaying model behavior. Throw a few shekels my way. It helps keep the lights on and keep me in action figures. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep displaying model behavior.